Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we're going to talk about a totally different way to look at a fresh start for 2026. And believe it or not, our inspiration comes from the surprisingly powerful world of microgreens. All right, let's just jump right in with a feeling I bet is super familiar to you. You know that cycle, right? You set these huge, awesome New Year's goals, you're full of energy, and then, just a few weeks in, that motivation just, poof, disappears. It's so frustrating, and honestly, it can make you feel kind of down.
And here's the thing, look at this number. This really puts it into perspective. Studies show that a whopping 92% of New Year's resolutions fail. 92%. So if this has happened to you, you are absolutely not alone. And listen, this isn't about you failing or not having enough willpower. It's about a failed approach. We treat it like a sprint when it's really a marathon.
And this desire to start something healthy gets especially confusing when we're trying to do it indoors, right? Because we automatically assume that to grow anything, you need a green thumb, a big backyard, and perfect sunlight. You know, things that most of us living in apartments or busy homes just don't have. So that belief, that idea that we need everything to be perfect just to get started, well, that leads us right into what we can call the fresh start fallacy. And this is really the core misunderstanding that trips us up over and over again. I mean, we've all been told that to see real results, you have to make these huge, dramatic changes, a total life overhaul, right? But the actual science of habit formation, it tells a totally different story, a much quieter but way more powerful one. Turns out, it's not about the giant leaps, it's all about the tiny steps.
And that's exactly why the old way of setting goals so often fails. It's just too much all at once. We try to transform everything overnight, we set these huge goals, and we rely on motivation and willpower. But here's the secret. Willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired, and when it runs out, the whole new habit just collapses.
Okay, so if the old way is basically designed for us to fail, then what's the alternative? What if the problem isn't us? What if it's the goal itself? And that brings us to the core idea here today. Let's talk about shifting to what I'm calling the microgreens mindset.
And this slide just illustrates that shift perfectly. Look at this. The old goal is grow a perfect tray of microgreens, which sounds kind of big and intimidating, right? The new goal is just practice a 2-minute habit. That's it. We shrink the goal down to something so ridiculously small, like just misting your seeds, that it's almost impossible to say no to. The whole focus shifts from the product to the process.
This is what a micro-habit is. It's a tiny, repeatable action that's so small it feels almost silly not to do it. We're talking less than 2 minutes. It's so quick your brain doesn't even have time to fire up the excuse machine or feel overwhelmed. You just do it.
And this is exactly why microgreens are the perfect physical metaphor for this. I mean, they're small, they're super beginner-friendly, but the most important part, they give you incredibly fast feedback. You'll see actual, visible progress, little green sprouts, in just a week or two. And that fast reward is everything for keeping your momentum going.
Yeah, that rapid feedback is super powerful. But why? Why does this little mental shift from focusing on the garden to focusing on the habit work so well? Well, let's dive into the psychology of it all, because it's actually pretty fascinating.
Okay, so our brains are basically wired to run on this really simple 3-step cycle. It's called the habit loop. You've got a cue, that's the trigger, like your morning coffee. Then the routine, the action itself, like misting your microgreens. And finally, the reward, that positive feeling you get. And here's the amazing part. Your brain doesn't care if the routine is big or small. All it cares about is getting that reward at the end. That little hit of, hey, I did something good.
And that reward isn't just a feeling, it's chemical. Your brain doesn't really know the difference between a big win and a small win. It just rewards any progress with a little hit of dopamine. So when you see a seed sprout in just a couple of days, your brain gets that reward and says, ooh, that was nice, let's do that again tomorrow. You're literally hacking your own brain to want to do the habit.
So knowing this, we can actually design our own success. This isn't about luck, it's a system. We can use these proven strategies like the 2-minute rule to make the habit so small it's easy to start. Or we can use habit stacking. That's where you tack on your new habit to something you already do, like misting your seeds right after you make your morning coffee. It's all about making the right choice the easiest choice.
All right, so we get the mechanics of how to build one tiny habit. But the big question is, how do these little, seemingly insignificant actions actually lead to big change? It can feel like it shouldn't work, right? But trust me, this is where the real magic starts to happen.
The magic isn't in any single action.
It's not about that one time you misted your seeds. The magic blooms in how all those tiny actions add up over time. It's the compound effect. Like with money, a tiny bit of interest adds up. Well, the same thing happens with our habits. Every small action is a ripple, and eventually all those ripples build into this incredible wave of change.
And look at this. A 1% improvement every day sounds like nothing, right? It's almost unnoticeable. But if you stick with that tiny improvement for a whole year, you don't end up 1% better. You end up 37 times better. That's the power of consistency. This is why something like growing microgreens can be what's called a gateway habit. It's this small, low-stakes win that builds your confidence. It's tangible proof that you're moving forward. It shows your brain, hey, I'm the kind of person who follows through. And that confidence just naturally starts to spill over into other areas of your life, making bigger changes feel, well, almost inevitable.
And what I love about this is that the goal is not to be perfect. The goal is just to be consistent. It's about building a system of small wins so that even on your worst days, you can still do it. And the one rule to remember is this: never miss twice. Sure, you might have an off day. Life happens. Just get back on track the next day. That's it.
And beyond all the science and the psychology, there's something else going on here. In our culture that's all about speed and productivity, growing something with your own hands, it's quiet. It's rejuvenating. It's this bold statement that says, you know what? Not everything has to be optimized. And that's a pretty powerful idea.
So, as we wrap up, I just want to leave you with this one question to think about. What if the biggest change you want to see in 2026 doesn't come from some massive, dramatic beginning, but from the smallest possible one? Because a real fresh start doesn't need a giant leap. All it really needs is a single tiny seed.